Hello friends, Tanya here with another video featuring Spellbinders Vivid Expressions collection that came out in January. This is a large collection. There are 8 different products. I'm going to use, I think, 4 here. I've got the Berry Fields border. It makes this beautiful scalloped floral, kind of a filigree type background, and I'm going to make my own colored cardstock. We've got worn lipstick and peeled paint in distress oxides and distress spray, distress spritz. And we're going to create some sparkly green and pink cardstock to make our elements for this Berry Fields border. Once I have them ink blended on some heavyweight white cardstock scraps, I'm going to spritz them with the coordinating color of spritz. I'm using this same box. This is an old card club kit box. I've been using the same box for years now, and it looks pretty sad. But with these newer bottles of sprays, that I haven't maybe used that color yet, I spritz it onto the lid before I put it on the product so I don't get any odd clumps or splotches. And it just creates this nice background. So then I go ahead and die cut all of these borders, and there are enough dies to cut berries to do an entire border. There are 5 3-berry dies in this set, so you don't have to cut many times. I love a good time-saving piece to any die set. And because I couldn't do just one, I made 3 of these. I wasn't sure where this card was going, and so it was nice to have a backup. Plus, in the back of my mind, I thought, these are 7 inches long. This is a 5x7 piece of white cardstock here that I'm going to die cut the coordinating scallop die from. I thought, why not have one in reserve for either the inside of the card or do a mini slimline card, because these would fit a mini slimline card perfectly. Next, I decided I wanted 2 of these borders on the front of my card. So I take that scallop die and I line it up with the remaining flat or straight edge and create this centerpiece that's going to go across the front of our card. Now it's time to adhere this. Now when you have these fine detailed pieces, you have to do little dots or tiny lines of glue to get them to adhere. And it takes me to about the 3rd scallop to get a pattern into how I'm going to add the dots. And you have to work fairly quickly so the glue doesn't completely dry on the beginning of this piece before you get to the end. It's pretty easy to just add little dots of glue on various areas and then just adhere it to your scallop area. I try to line up the center-ish area and then make sure my margins are even all the way around. I glued the 2nd border to the other side, and now we have this central panel to fill. I thought about doing letterpress on that, but then I decided to do some more ink blending and create a pink center. And my camera would not focus so I could show you this, but this is a piece of watercolor cardstock that I have cut to 1 3/4 by 7 inches. Which will fit in that space between the 2 borders. I really didn't want to cover much of it, so I measured the space between them and created a panel that size. I'm using some pearlized water, which is just water with perfect pearls in the perfect pearl color. And honestly, if I had had just a plain water spritzer on my desk, I would have used that. Next, we're going to use the Vivid Script Sentiments and some treasured cardstock in the gold assortment. We're going to choose the mirror metallic cardstock. There are 2 components to this die set. There is a fine detail and then there's a shadow layer. We're using the words best wishes. Now I had originally planned to use brushed white cardstock for the shadow element, and I had 2 layers of heavyweight white cardstock scraps that I cut extra layers of that shadow. But when I started to adhere them, I adhered them to the heavyweight white cardstock scrap instead of the shadow in the brushed white. So we're going to save those brushed white shadows for another time. It is a very versatile cardstock. It does add some extra shimmer and shine, but you know what? I think this was a good mistake because there is no other brushed white cardstock used on this card, and the cardstock base is the same cardstock or same white as this background, so it kind of ties all of the colors of this on this card together a little better. The brushed white would have looked fine also, but you know, it's okay. It's not the end of the world if it didn't go exactly as planned. The fine line sentiments are just gorgeous, and they're very easy to work with if you have a reverse tweezer and some very fine glue. This is the Barely Art Precision Glue that I have put in the fine tip bottles from Spellbinders. It's just easier to control. The body of the bottle is softer, so it's easier to put just a little bit of light pressure to get the amount of glue that you need. And I have less problems with this getting clogged. I don't know why that is, but I'll take it. I'm dry fitting that on the front of the card, and now I think that there is too much white space. And this is a good opportunity to use another product in this line. I have more watercolor cardstock scraps here, and I'm using the same colors, the worn lipstick and the peeled paint. Just ink blending on these watercolor panels in a very splotchy fashion. They do not need to be solid. We're going to use the pearlized water again, just because I want to get that loose watercolor background look. And I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolors here because I just got a new product. Spellbinders now has a watercolor mixing set, and I could not remember if it was released yet. So I didn't use it, but I'll use it later. We've got the Blooming Butterflies die and embossing set. So this embossing folder does several things. It has a beautiful floral cluster. It has a single floral. It has 3 butterflies and 2 individual leaves. The amazing thing with this embossing folder style is it cuts and embosses at the same time. Or you can just do one. You can just emboss without cutting also, but you slip those dies into their spot and they just pop right in, and then you run it through the die cutting machine and it does it all at once. So I've cut the 3 butterflies from the pink, and now I'm going to I ultimately cut 6 leaves, so I do this 3 times and they turn out just stunning. I love this, all that deep detail. And this is the watercolor mixing set I was talking about. It has pearl gold, pearl silver, and indigo. Now the indigo, if you mix it thick enough, it looks like black. And if you water it down a little more, that's that darker streak on this piece of cardstock. Or sorry, well, darker. It's the blue streak on there. Indigo, of course, is a deep blue. And I'm using this to highlight the bodies of the butterflies. It is really nice to work with. These are very opaque. If you have the Gansai Tombi watercolors, it's just like those. And these are large. This is a full pan of each of these colors. And very versatile. These are things that I use all the time. So if you don't have any metallic watercolors, this would be a great set. Next, we're going to use some Pearl Luster Gilding Polish. I really wanted to emphasize the embossing on these butterflies, and I'm trying just a little bit of this shimmer, and I got a little heavy with it. So I'm going to try using my finger. First, actually, I'm going to add a little more pink with the worn lipstick Distress the sponge there, the blending sponge. And then I use my finger to try to more lightly apply this so it's not quite so blobby. And I think that worked better. And then I'm going to move on to the third one, and I'm just trying to be light, and you can see the veining in the butterfly wings a little better. I think it looks nice. They looked good without doing this, so you certainly don't have to go on to that step. Now it's time to start assembling our card front. I added some extra layer of cardstock behind this element. I'm turning this to a landscape card, and I'm using the grid on my work surface to line up and try to make this as even between top and bottom spacing and as straight as I can. Next, I'm going to add that center pink banner across the front, or up between the two borders. And my two borders are not perfectly straight compared to one another, and that's okay. I just make it look as straight as I can. Now we're going to adhere the best wishes, and I'm trying to evenly space these words between each other and the ends of the card front. Now I'm looking at this, and I know I'm going to add the flower, or sorry, not the flowers, the butterflies and the leaves. I have them kind of swooping across from the center of the card, and the leaves, these leaves point in opposite directions, so you can use them in a variety of ways to create patterns and bunches on your cards. We're going to do all 3 of the butterflies on the front of the card. I was originally only going to do 2, but the space between the words is so big, I thought it really needed something there to make it look very purposeful. Otherwise, the words are probably a little more designed to go on an A2 size card. They could be a little bigger for an A7 or a 5x7, but we're definitely making this work. Of course, I chose to have a large landing place for my sentiment, and that's part of why it looks a little overwhelmed by the card size. That could just be me being very critical. It does look very nice in the end. I add glue just to the centers of those butterflies and get those to adhere. And then we're going to use some Color Essential gems. I have the Spectrum AB and the Crystal Mix here. And the Spectrum AB looks very, I think it might be the same color as the more sparkly, less cloudy of the Crystal Mix. And I'm just adding 3 groups of 3 here. I just want there to be a nice flow and extra movement involving the entire card, just trying to pull all of this design together. I'm wishing I had used a panel behind the borders with some embossing, but the embossing folder that is in this suite of, or this collection of products, isn't for an entire card front. It's to create different elements, and I just didn't feel like digging through my stash to see one, to find one that fit with the theme of this project. I kind of wanted to stick with what was in this collection. Next, we're using 2 leaves and a butterfly on the inside of the card to add some details from the front of the card. And if I had time, because I had family coming over, I think they were downstairs waiting for me to come downstairs when I finished this card, I would have used the sub-sentiment die set, better press kit from this collection, but I ran out of time. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun to walk through this process with all of you. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do that now. And if you're interested in any of the product that I used today, check that description box below. It will be listed and linked as always. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.